What's going on, everybody, and welcome to my 2021 NFL playoff predictions. Before we get into the video, make sure to go ahead and subscribe, turn on all notifications for more videos like this coming up. I got tons of new content coming up, you don't want to miss it, so go ahead and click that subscribe button. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the first game, Ravens versus Titans. This game is like basically kind of a rivalry at this point. You obviously have the Titans coming in and just upsetting the Ravens last year in the playoffs, and then again this year earlier in the season they came in and beat them in overtime. But I think this time things will be a little different because the Ravens are red hot right now. They're absolutely rolling. Ever since Lamar took that dump against the Browns, this has been a completely different team. But for real, like the Ravens, I think the way Lamar's playing right now and the way their run game is rolling, the Titans obviously have a great run game too. Derrick Henry just had 2,000 rushing yards. But I think the Ravens are more dynamic with Lamar Jackson because the Titans offense is really good, but it's also kind of one-dimensional in a way. Like their entire offense runs through Derrick Henry. If you can slow him down, because their entire offense is just running Derrick Henry and taking shots with play action, which it's hard to stop that because Derrick Henry is a monster. But if you can, their whole offense kind of falls apart. So I do think this would be one of the better games this weekend, but I'm going to take the Ravens just because I think they have a little more momentum right now, and I just trust their overall talent of that roster more. The Titans defense has really struggled this season, and I just think the Ravens are going to pull up this win. Alright, next game, Colts versus Bills. I think this game could actually be a lot closer than some people are giving credit for. Colts obviously have one of the better defenses in the league. This game could be a lot lower scoring than a lot of people think. The Bills obviously have one of the best offenses in the league, but this Colts defense has been performing great all season. I think this could really come down to like the last few possessions. I think it could be a low scoring game, but at the end of the day, Colts just don't have the kind of firepower to keep up with the Bills offense. Josh Allen's been playing out of his mind. He's gonna make a few miracle plays here and there and just push the Bills over the edge. So until Josh Allen actually starts looking human, I'm taking the Bills. Browns versus Steelers. Now, a lot of people are much lower on the Steelers now than, say, like a month or two ago. And for good reason, honestly. They've not looked as great. I think a lot of their flaws have been put on display. They lost to the football team and then the Bengals a few weeks later. Not as much hype for the Steelers now as there was earlier in the season. But they are still the 3 seed in the AFC. Like, they're still a good team. And honestly, ultimately, I think they're going to win this game. If the Browns could absolutely pull off this win, and I wouldn't be that surprised. But, the Steelers defense is still really good. I know they're missing like tons of players now due to injury and all that stuff. But it's still one of the better defenses in the league. And I think the biggest problem for the Browns in this game is that they're not going to have Kevin Stefanski. He tested positive for COVID, I think. He had some kind of COVID situation. I think he tested positive. But basically, he's not going to be able to coach in that game, and I think that's a massive hit. Stefanski was my pick for Coach of the Year, and just because of the way he's had this Browns offense rolling, like his scheme, the way he's had Baker set in a position to succeed especially after their bye week. Ultimately, I think not having Stefanski is going to be the biggest deciding factor in this game. I think the Browns offense could really struggle in this game. Of course, they still got a really talented roster. They still got an elite offensive line. Nick Chubb, Baker Mayfield's been balling, so he could definitely put on a show, upset the Steelers. Well, I don't know. if that'd be upset compared to what most people are predicting. But ultimately, the Steelers, I think they'll just be able to make a few plays with their receiving core. Still really good. Juju, Claypool, Deontay Johnson. You know, one of them is going to make a few splash plays to put them over the edge in this game. Bears versus Saints. Honestly, this is probably going to be the lowest scoring game of the weekend. I'd be pretty surprised if it's not, honestly. This Bears offense has been much better recently, but it's still not very good. Anytime you got Mitch Trubisky as your starting quarterback in the playoffs, you're not sitting pretty. So, two great defenses in this game. Bears and Saints, both one of some of the better defenses in the league. So I think this will be a really low scoring game. Ultimately, Mitchell Trubisky in the playoff game, I'm not taking the Bears. The Saints may not have Kamara for this game. I still don't know if he's going to be cleared to play. I don't think it really has that big of an impact on this outcome. I think the Saints at home, Sean Payton will be able to call up enough plays to outscore the Bears. Could honestly be like 17-3, or maybe not 17-3, 17-10, 17-13. Real low scoring game, but I do think the Saints are going to pull off a win. Breeze, obviously, much more playoff experience than Trubisky. Although I know he's been to the playoffs before, but I mean, it's Mitch Trubisky against Drew Brees. I'm taking the better quarterback in a game like this, so give me the Saints at home. Rams versus Seahawks. Now, this is probably the hardest game to predict of this weekend, and that's mainly because of Goff's health. I don't know if Goff's going to play this week, and if he does, what his health is going to look like if he's going to be back to 100%, if he's going to be, struggling out there. But Seahawks are absolutely on upset watch because this defense matches up amazing against the Seahawks offense. Jalen Ramsey, one of the best corners in the league by himself, and he matches up beautifully against DK Metcalf. He has the physicality and size to match Metcalf, which not many corners in the NFL do. They also have a good run D, which may make it hard for the Seahawks to set up play action. That their offense is really best when they get that play action going. Seattle also might not have Jamal Adams, which, there's been a lot of Jamal Adams slander this season, but he's still one of the best safeties in the league. And if he's out and Goff plays this game, then I'm going to have to change my pick because I do have the Seahawks winning this game. But if Jamal Adams is out and Jared Goff is playing, I'm taking the Rams. If either one of those doesn't happen, I'm sticking with the Seahawks. So if Goff is out and Jamal Adams is out, I'm still taking the Seahawks. If Goff is in, but Jamal Adams is also in, then I'm still taking the Seahawks. But I do think this could be one. I think this is like the hardest game to predict this week because there's just so many unknowns. But for now, I'm just sticking with the Seahawks. Buccaneers versus the Washington football team. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. Buccaneers are going to win this game. Washington's defense is pretty good, and their defensive line is really good, but I think that Tampa Bay's offensive line is better, so they'll be able to slow down that pass rush. And ultimately, the way this offense has been rolling for the Buccaneers lately, I just don't see any way that Washington can keep up with them. This is going to be the biggest blowout of the playoffs this year, in my opinion. I think the way Tom Brady's just been on a tear recently, past month or so, this offense has been unstoppable. And as good as Washington's defense is, as much as I like Ron Rivera, I just don't see them winning this game. Ravens versus Chiefs. I honestly think the Chiefs could be on upset alert for this game. Patrick Mahomes hasn't played in 2 weeks at this point, and I know a lot of people aren't gonna like that. Like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's Patrick Mahomes, and I agree. Patrick Mahomes is still amazing, but I do think this offense could start out slow for the Chiefs, And if that's the case, they could really be in a tough spot, because we obviously know the Ravens love to run the ball. And if you get behind, obviously the Chiefs are the best team in the league when it comes to just scoring quick. So they could easily turn that around just like that, like they did against the Texans last year. But the Ravens offense is rolling right now. And the Chiefs linebackers, Willie Gay is really going to have to step up, in my opinion, because the Chiefs linebackers against this run game, the way they've been operating recently, could get ugly. But at the end of the day, I still think Kansas City is the best team in the league, best offense in the league, best quarterback in the league. And because of that, I'm taking the Chiefs. But I do think if the Chiefs start slow, the Ravens could absolutely pull off this upset, because the Chiefs have been making a ton of mistakes recently, and they pretty much always manage to find a way to win just because of that offense and the talent on that team. But against a team like this, that could really come back to bite them. Steelers versus Bills. Another rematch of a game from earlier in the season. And in that game, Bills basically had their way with the Steelers. Steelers couldn't keep pace with that Bills offense. And unfortunately for Steelers fans, I think it's going to be a bit of a repeat of last time. Steelers offense, they just can't keep pace with the Bills. They've got a lot of talent on that offense, but especially the way Big Ben has been playing, I just don't think they can hang with them. They don't have the kind of vertical passing ability. And, it's the second straight tough game, tough defense for the Bills. In this scenario, they just beat the Colts last week. So they've been, a little used to playing tough defenses. And Josh Allen has been great under pressure this year, which is really where the Steelers defense thrives, is their pass rush. And the last game they played really proved, in my opinion, that the Steelers secondary just doesn't have the talent to hang with the Bills passing game, especially Stephon Diggs. He went crazy the last time these guys played, and I think he could have another big game this time. So I'm taking the Bills in this game. All right, next up we got Seahawks versus Saints. And this game is really tough to predict, in my opinion. Seattle's really going to have to run the ball, in my opinion. I don't think, as much as we love to, let Russ cook, I don't think that's really the best way for their offense to operate, because I think they're much better when they're consistently running the ball, setting up deep shots with play action, not just throwing it deep for every play. Because when you can set up some play action shots, that's when, Lockett and DK, that's when they can really get going. Saints pass rush could also make things difficult if they have to really air the ball out a lot. Seattle doesn't have the best offensive line. It's better than in recent years, but it's still not great by any means. And Saints pass rush has been really good this season. Seattle does match up pretty well against the Saints offense. They've got Saints offense relies a lot on short passes, quick game, getting guys open in space. But the Seahawks have great linebacker core. They can really start to slow down Kamara. You're never going to stop him, but you can kind of limit what he can do in the passing game. But at the end of the day, I do think the Saints are going to pull off this win. They're at home. They may have fans in the stands. I'm not sure if the Superdome is having fans or not. Can't remember off the top of my head. But ultimately, Saints at home. I think their offensive line is going to give Breeze plenty of time to read the defense, get things going. And I just think the Saints pull out a very close win. I think this would be a really good matchup. Very close game, but I think the Saints ultimately come out on top. All right, Buccaneers versus Packers. Another really tough matchup to predict. Earlier in the season, of course, the Bucs handed the Packers biggest loss of the year easily. Rodgers was really bad in that game, but ultimately I think this game is going to be much closer than that matchup. You know, you got the Packers playing in Lambeau this time in the cold weather. Obviously, Brady's used to being in cold weather from his time up in New England. But the Packers, they've been absolutely rolling this season. And I think a major X factor in this game could be A.J. Dillon. They've been able to get him going recently, especially in that Titans game. And I think cold weather games like this, being able to run the ball, wear down the defense, that can really play a factor. And I think the Packers obviously have a better run game than the Buccaneers, in my opinion. And the physicality of a guy like A.J. Dillon can really wear down that Bucs defense, which can also set up plenty of play action shots, which the Packers offensive scheme thrives on. Running that, you know, play action, Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, Arthur Smith, all these guys run that heavy play action offense. And, you know, I think Packers are really going to learn from that loss in Week 6. Like I said, it was by far their worst loss of the year. I think they're going to be well prepared for this matchup. They probably in the lab studying since that game. Rodgers has been playing out of his mind this year. My pick for the MVP. And I think because of all of that, I think the Packers sneak out a close win. I think this is going to be one of the best matchups of the playoffs, in my opinion. But ultimately, I think the Packers win a shootout just because, you know, Rodgers has been better than Brady this year. As great as that Bucs offense is, I think cold weather may be able to limit the verticality of that offense. And Tampa's pass rush isn't as good now as it was in that original matchup. And I think with that Packers offensive line, film study they've probably taken from that original matchup, they'll be able to come up with a better offensive game plan and just ultimately win a close game against the Bucs. Now for the conference championships. Alright, so in the AFC, we got Bills versus Chiefs. Not the most unconventional pick. 1 versus 2 seed. It's actually the same 1 versus 2 seed in the NFC too. But I think this could be the best game of the year. Like, even better than Super Bowl matchup. I really wish these teams could play in the Super Bowl. Obviously they can't, they're both in the AFC. But I think this is going to be a fantastic game, super high scoring. Both teams with elite offenses and, you know, average to a little above average defenses. But a game like this, I think it's just going to be a complete shootout. Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen, just airing the ball out. Tons of battle of two best arms in the NFL, honestly. I think this game is probably just going to come down to whoever messes up first, or, you know, whoever gets the ball last is going to win. Ultimately, I think if the Chiefs make it to the AFC Championship game, that means they've gotten back on track. Offense is rolling again. And if that's the case, I don't see that anyone beating them at this point. So I'm taking the Chiefs in this game, but I do think it'll be a great game. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Bills pull off a win in this matchup. But ultimately, I think Patrick Mahomes has more playoff experience. Chiefs, in general, have more playoff experience. And I think that's going to put them out on top in this game. Now, in the NFC Championship, we've got Saints versus Packers. I don't think this game is going to be quite as good as the Bills versus Chiefs game we just talked about. But I think it could still be a good matchup for them. Breeze and Lambeau Field, though, that cold weather with Breeze's arm talent, I don't think that's a good matchup at all. I know it's a bit of a cliche thing to say, talking about Breeze playing outdoors at this stage of his career. But I do think it's kind of a cliche for a reason. He's just doesn't have the same kind of arm talent that he used to. And he never really had like a cannon of an arm. But ultimately, Packers offensive line, I know I talked about this Saints versus Seahawks with the Saints pass rush, but I think the Packers offensive line much better than the Seahawks offensive line, arguably the best pass protecting O-line in the league. Although they are missing Bakhtiari, which could prove to be a really big factor in this game. I don't know if it's really big, but I think the Packers, once again, kind of like the last matchup, are just more used to better stylized for this kind of cold weather game. They can wear down that defense with A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones at running game. Kamara, obviously, on the other side of the ball, he's going to do some work too. And, you know, the Packers don't have the same kind of linebackers as the Seahawks do. But ultimately, I think the Saints offense could really struggle in this matchup. They don't have the same kind of offensive firepower as the Bucs did in the Packers last game. And I think the key for the Packers, just run the ball, wear down the defense. And I think if they take an early lead, which is very likely, they're probably not giving it back. So I'm taking the Packers in this game. And now we got Packers versus Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I know, number 1 seed versus number 1 seed. It's not very, not the most unique prediction. But, you know, there hasn't been a team to make the Super Bowl without a first round bye since like 2012. So obviously that's not the only reason I picked this matchup, but I do think that could, you know, play a factor. Now for the game itself, I do think this game could absolutely go either way. The Chiefs could really struggle against the Packers run game. I mentioned it earlier, but the linebackers for that team just are not that great. I think they'll do a decent job slowing down the run game, but I think a really big key for this matchup is Packers defense and how they choose to attack this Chiefs offense, because they love to play like single high looks, and that's not going to work against the Chiefs. If you play a lot of man coverage and single high looks, which the Packers have been doing a lot this season, the Chiefs are absolutely going to light that up. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, like you cannot cover these guys in man coverage. Tyreek especially, like you gotta double that guy basically every play. You gotta bring over safety, bracket that guy, just let other guys beat you, which for the Chiefs, they probably can because they've got a ridiculous offense. But I think if the Chiefs have made it this far, it's because their offense is back to their early form, and I don't think the Packers have the weapons to keep up with the Chiefs. They obviously have Aaron Rodgers, who is, like I said, my pick for the MVP this year. But I do think in a game like this, the firepower for the Chiefs is just going to be too much for that Packers defense. And I think the Chiefs pull off a win in a really good matchup, but just a little bit too much for the Packers to handle. Alright, so those are my picks. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and let me know your Super Bowl predictions as well. I'd love to go through, read what you guys have to say. If you made it this far in the video, you know you liked it. Go ahead and leave a like, share it with your friends, get some other people. Just have fun. Let's just have fun, enjoy the playoffs, and stay safe out there, y'all. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.